All right, what's up, YouTubers? It's me again. I just want to talk to you about residencies and second passports in Latin America, how to get them, how much they cost, what I think about them all. If you're on a budget and you're looking to get a second residency, which will lead to a second passport, and you're not really rich or wealthy and you want to go as cheap as you can, well, right now you got about two choices. As you probably well know, there's a deal in South America, in Paraguay. You have to deposit $5,000 or $6,000 into a local bank account, and then you have to have an FBI background check, notarized and certified, and then you have to have a lawyer basically fill out all the paperwork, and you got to fly down there. Now, when you look at all that, it's not too bad. You only have to deposit about $5,000 or $6,000, but when you consider the cost of flying down there, and then the fact that you're flying to South America is quite expensive compared to Central America. And then when you look at all that, it can get kind of expensive, but it is one of the cheaper options. One thing that's kind of that's beneficial to people about it is you don't need to have any qualifying income. Like, you don't have to have investment income. You don't have to prove any source of income or anything. You have to have a clear background check, and you have to do that through the FBI, which is now getting more and more expensive, and it's taking longer and longer to get. So that's one of the downsides. The other downside is you got to fly down there, fill out all the paperwork, have your lawyer fill all your paperwork, or a fixer, and then you got to stay there a week or two, get all the paperwork processed, and then 6 months, maybe perhaps 6 months down the road, you'll get your government ID and you'll get your residency, which you may or may not want to fly down there. But if you want to get your ID, you're going to have to fly down there typically. So you got two round trip tickets that could be like $1,200 each. So that's like $2,400 to add on to the $5,000 or $6,000. So you're talking about $7,000 or $8,000. And there's one more thing about the Paraguayan residency that a lot of people really don't realize is if you go through that route, eventually you're going to get permanent residency, and you're going to get naturalized. And before you can get a passport, you have to get naturalized, and most people skip that process. So if you're online, you might read about people who say they've been scammed or how you can't get a passport. It's really not true. It's just people, they don't know the rules. They don't follow the rules, and they don't have a lawyer, and they may have a fixer that's really cheap but doesn't explain it to them, so they figure they're getting ripped off. Well, there's definitely a process. You got to go through the process. You have to understand what it is, and you have to use lawyers and fixers who aren't breaking the law, which happens quite frequently down there. So just be aware of that. Go with reputable people. You might have to pay more, but it's worth it long run. Because if you pick the wrong person, you either got to start over or you're going to get kicked out of the program. So one way or the other, it pays to know the right people and avoid that kind of trouble that's happened recently in the last few years, where people were using fixers or lawyers who could get them so-called instant passports. I don't want to get into the legality of that and if it's possible or not, or if it's even written in the Constitution or anything like that, because down there it's like anywhere else. Everything's flexible, so no matter what it says in the Constitution, there are ways. I just don't suggest you go down that road. It's just not worth it. Just follow the rules, get your FBI background check, deposit the money into the bank like they tell you to, and then fly down there when you have to fly down there to pick up your ID, and you really have to be down there for 1 or 2 weeks to file the paperwork, because you got to be there to do certain things down there. Now, there's one more place that's really easy to get a residency. I say really easy because, one, you don't need a FBI background check. You just need a regular police background check from your sheriff's department, and then that needs to be certified at the sheriff's department. Then you need to recertify again at the embassy that's closest to that sheriff's department where you got it legalized or certified. So like if you're in the Midwest and you're in Chicago, and then you're gonna have to get it certified in the Chicago area, and then you're gonna have to go to the embassy in the Chicago area and have it certified there. So generally speaking, if you're in the Midwest, like if you're in like Iowa, then you get that paperwork, your original police check, in Iowa, but then you'd have to have it sent to the nearest embassy that Paraguay has one, and that would be Chicago. Then it has to be notarized in Chicago by the Guatemalan embassy there. And then I'm talking about Guatemala now. And then you have to fly down there, pay a lawyer, and he'll file all the paperwork. And now with some new recent changes, you gotta get your passport certified down there in Guatemala. So you actually have to go down there to Guatemala to get the process started. One cool thing about Guatemala is, well, it's actually a few. One cool thing is you don't have to have any annual income. You don't have to prove any income. So if you're a younger person and you don't have any steady income coming in, you don't need to worry about it. You don't have to pay. You have to prove anything. You don't have to form a corporation or anything like that. You don't have to verify income and things of that nature. In most of Latin America, if you just form a corporation and pass income through the company, that's good enough. Just in case you're in other parts of Latin America where that might be a problem, you just have your lawyer form a corporation, have that company form an employment contract between you and the company, and then pass some income through or capital, and then pay that out as income. But what's cool about Guatemala is you don't need to do all that rigmarole. You just get your background check at the local police department, get it certified at that local police department, and then you get it recertified at the Guatemala embassy closest to wherever it is you got the police report check. Then you pay your fee to a lawyer, which could be $1,500, $2,000, or even less. But whatever it is, you pay that fee, and then you get your temporary residency. And then after a year or two, that's another good example. If you go to the website, it says 2 years, but actually you can apply after 1 year. You don't have to wait for the 2 years to roll out. You just have your lawyer reapply for your permanent residency after 1 year of your temporary residency. Excuse me. Once you do that, again, you have to get your passport recertified again in the local embassy in Guatemala, so you got to be down there to do that. And then your lawyer will fill out the paperwork and then just pay the fees. One thing about the lawyer's fees, what a lot of people don't realize when they see these fees, no matter how high or low they are, understand that in these countries, generally speaking, you have to pay taxes to become a resident. That's part of the process. So a big chunk of your lawyer's fee is just the tax you have to pay to get a temporary and then permanent residency. And for example, in Guatemala, once you finish with the 5-year permanent residency, you can apply for naturalization where you get your passport. And that's the third process a lot of people aren't aware of. You have to do that. And the process of doing that, you have to pay your lawyer a fee, and then you have to pay taxes. So each step of the way, you're paying taxes. So if I remember right, I think for the temporary, it's $300 to $500 for tax. And then I think when you do permanent residency, the tax the government charges something like $500 to $700. And then for the naturalization, where you get your passport, I'm not sure what that is, but it's where you're going to pay the biggest chunk. Basically, going to pay $5,000 plus whatever fees you got to do to fly down here, do that. And there's one more benefit I didn't mention of Guatemala. When you have a permanent residency or a temporary residency, what's cool about it is in a lot of countries you have to live in that country at least 6 months out of the year to make sure that residency stays in effect. Well, Guatemala's not like that. You only have to stay 1 day. So as long as you're here 1 day, you qualify. Now, if you're not going to really live here and you only come here a couple days a year, will you eventually get a passport? I don't know. It's a good question. But if you're going to really live here, if you're really going to learn Spanish, you don't have to live here full time. You can just come and go as you want. And mainly, as long as you're doing some kind of business here or speaking Spanish or part of the community, your lawyer can set that up and prove that to people in government. You'll get your passport. There's really no worries about that. And as far as your permanent residency goes, once you get your permanent residency, you'll get your local ID here, and you can travel anywhere in the C4 countries with your local ID. You won't even need a passport. So just with that local ID, you can travel into 4 countries in Central America without a passport. That's another benefit. So you might want to consider that too. So just with the permanent residency, you can use that ID to open up bank accounts. You can travel in the C4 region, and you can do business in that country that you're living in. and work if that's what you want. I don't really recommend it, but you can work. You'll be legal to work, and once you get that permanent residency, you don't have to like do anything special, anything. Just apply for a job like anyone else if that's what you want. So just to wrap up, some of the benefits of a residency in Guatemala is you only have to be here one day to qualify to keep it legal every year. Um, you only need a regular police check. You don't need an FBI background check. So you don't have to wait months. You don't have to get your fingerprints taken. Um, and you don't have to rush down after you get it to make sure it's within a certain time frame for that country, like a lot of countries are doing now in Latin America. And then another benefit is the fees for the lawyer. Just they're very affordable, even if you're on the backpacker budget. Almost anyone can afford it. If you're willing to work a couple of minimum wage jobs in the States and save just really save up, you can afford the lawyer fees. And then the hotels and to live down here it's like dirt cheap. You can rent an apartment for $200 or $300 easy if you're looking at a one bedroom or studio or something like that. My place is only 135, so it's cheap to live here. And then it's just a matter of filling out the paperwork, having your lawyer fill it out, paying the fee, and your lawyer will pay all the taxes, and he'll keep all those documents you need for when you need to later on apply for your permanent and then your naturalization. And so if you're looking for a second passport, or you're looking for just a legal residency, that's really dirt cheap, consider Guatemala. And this process is a little different in the surrounding countries, but it's not a lot different. But what's unique about it is you don't need to prove any annual income. You only need to be here one day a year to keep it in force. And you just need to pay the fees, the government taxes, and then your lawyer's fees to keep the whole thing going. So in the fullness of time, you will have your local ID where you can open a bank account, and you'll have a passport that, like, if for one reason or another you want to bank with that passport or travel on that passport or whatever. And just with your local ID, like I said, you can travel into any of the C4 countries. And if you're really clever and understand how things work down here, you can have some interesting banking habits, which I can't get into right now. It's just too public to talk about stuff like that right now. But if you're looking to diversify your residency and you're looking for like a kind of a plan B if you're in the States, especially if you're in Europe, you're European, Latin America's cheap, come on down, put in a residency, have a place to go if things get really bad there in Europe. It doesn't look too good right now. Looks like there's a big invasion of Muslims coming into your country, so come to the Americas. It's safe and sound here. And that's about all I have to say about that. So let me know what you think. Like, share the video, and subscribe to the channel, please. Thank you.